Chapter 3. Inside the Minxi Palace study, beside the imposing long table situated in the middle, a slightly smaller desk and chair were carefully arranged. A young girl in green clothes was sitting there, skillfully wielding a brush, writing one report after another. She was so focused on her writing task that she neglected the dry ink and the inkstone that desperately needed grinding. An official standing in front of the desk shrewdly took the initiative to grind ink for her. Judging solely by the first rank insignia on his official robe, he must be someone who doesn't even need to pour his own tea on regular days. Yet now, he was grinding ink for the young girl like an apprentice, a sight both bizarre and amusing to the extreme. However, this was not the first time such an event had occurred here, nor was he the only person to have done such a thing. In this considerable amount of time, the young girl who had finished reviewing the reports finally lifted her head to look at the official, who had been waiting for a while, not even noticing that he was still grinding ink for her. This careless negligence, contrary to her cautious character, had a kind of endearing innocence of youth. "Sir, sentencing criminals to a lifetime banishment from their homeland, isn't that considered a lighter punishment than death? Wouldn't it be better to command them to work on the northern frontier, contributing to the Great Tang? What do you think?" she asked. "The Empress has instructed me to overhaul the Tang laws, and indeed, Lady Shangguan's suggestions are very useful. But does the Empress also share this view?" the official inquired. Wan'er does not dare to speculate on her intentions. "I am merely expressing my humble opinion," she replied. "I see." The official stroked his long beard thoughtfully. In politics, courtesies always have deeper meanings, and discerning the unspoken implications is the way of an official. This first-rank official, who adhered to a philosophy of going with the flow regarding Empress Wu's wishes, bowed to the young girl without any official title. "Then, I request Lady Shangguan to revise the wording of the reports and present them to the Empress on my behalf. Wan'er will consider it carefully. Please rest assured, sir," she said. The official left satisfied, and Shangguan Wan'er promptly opened another report, continuing with the responsibilities entrusted to her by Empress Wu Zishan. Initially, the Empress Regent, busy with countless affairs, only asked her to embellish the wording of edicts, occasionally drafting ceremonial announcements or speeches for the court officials. Recently, as Emperor Li Zi's illness worsened and Empress Wu's duties became increasingly numerous, ranging from trivial internal affairs to now revising criminal laws, adjusting taxes, and water conservancy projects, all these were confidently delegated to her for review and filtering. What was feasible, beneficial, and not to be missed, she would pass on to Empress Wu Zishan. For those that could be supplemented, imperfect, or awaiting the right moment, Shangguan Wan'er would privately consult the officials and seek advice for improvements, modifying some of the wording to reach a consensus acceptable to both parties. As for those reports that would surely be dismissed by Wu Zishan as nonsensical and outdated, the thoughtful and intelligent new favorite made sure her mistress would not be bothered, sending them back to Barrierton. Happy to admit, the current situation was beyond Shangguan Wan'er's expectations. When she first moved into the separate courtyard of Minxi Palace that night, upon hearing Empress Wu Zishan's order to serve her closely, she couldn't be sure what exactly the Empress expected from her. Was it the physical intimacy hinted at in their recent, continuous, ambiguous interactions? Was it to cultivate a confidant and expand political power, or simply to have someone to enhance her leisure time with poetry? Shangguan Wan'er's mind was filled with countless thoughts, yet her hand continued to write swiftly. Empress Wu Zishan was like a towering iron tower, commanding the winds and clouds in the world, her presence awe-inspiring. But she was also a woman, more beautiful and charming than any other. So even the inexperienced Shangguan Wan'er couldn't be naive enough to think that the Empress's touches and caresses were purely out of appreciation for her talent. Yet, the Empress never went any further, only continuously teasing and flirting, as if tasting a kind of fine wine she had never tried before. Shangguan Wan'er even thought she would rather endure the hardship of sharing the Empress's bed. To settle this matter quickly and avoid the unresolved tension between them, by passing these tests of trust, the affection Empress Wu showed her was complex and multifaceted. Initially, Shangguan Wan'er was quite certain of it, but as time passed, and she saw one handsome, dignified man after another enter and leave, and heard the jealous and envious jokes about absorbing yang to supplement yin, she became less sure. In fact, theoretically speaking, considering Empress Wu's torment in the nunnery and her deep hatred for Lady Zhao, the most logical explanation would be that Empress Wu extremely disliked women. Regardless, Shangguan Wan'er looked at the inkstone with leftover ink, distractedly wondering why there was still so much ink left, and sighed helplessly as she pushed the hair from her shoulder. Regardless, she just hoped that when the Empress unreservedly flirted with those men, she would at least be sent away, rather than standing by idly to watch and learn. After all, her time could be spent on more meaningful tasks. In such situations, she could have averted her gaze, but Empress Wu always watched her every move, with undisguised, lustful eyes and a seductive, soft laugh. This made Shangguan Wan'er feel an illusion, as if the Empress's kisses and touches were not for those easily replaceable men, but for her, the young girl standing aside, renowned for her talent. On several nights, Shangguan Wan'er would wake from her dreams, remembering such laughter. That charming and voluptuous Empress, indeed, had a special power that led one's thoughts astray. "What are you thinking about, Wan'er?" A gentle voice, resonant and clear. Shangguan Wan'er quickly gathered her thoughts and replied without hesitation. Responding to the Empress, Wan'er was reviewing Minister Han's report. Empress Wu Zishan, who entered the study gracefully and sat down familiarly at the desk, seemed as composed as ever, reminding one of clouds drifting in a summer sky. What does that old man have to say this time? The Empress had earlier proposed increasing troops in Tubo. Minister Han directly advised the Emperor against it, citing reasons like years of warfare on the border, preventing the people from resting and recuperating. Why didn't he tell me when the borders were ever free from warfare? Empress Wu Zishan scoffed after hearing Shangguan Wan'er's relay. The Tang dynasty has been sending envoys to these barbarian tribes, and I have personally met foreign envoys, even considering their travel expenses, thoroughly. Even for the rebellious Tubo, I adopted a supporting policy, giving them agricultural tools, seeds, and managerial talents. But that doesn't mean I will let off those who disturb the border lightly. Wan'er write a letter to old Han, asking him whether he prefers to increase troops now to prevent invasions, or wait to be attacked and then send troops, embarrassing himself. Empress, Minister Han also mentioned that the Southern Water Control Project requires a lot of manpower. Increasing troops now might deplete resources crucial for national governance and people's livelihood. Absurd. Wasn't the water control plan arranged at the beginning of the year? Now he's saying it needs manpower. What exactly is old Han thinking? Empress Wu Zishan abruptly stopped talking, her gaze suddenly sharp. Wan'er, was this report first sent to the Emperor? Shangguan Wan'er nodded. The Emperor has already stamped it, stopping the increase of troops in Tubo. In 5 days, 1,000 strong men and 100 taels of gold will be sent to the south. Empress Wu's expression fluctuated, her hands still playing with the red dragon pearl she had recently taken a liking to. More than the opposition from court officials, what irked her more was that they had bypassed her to go directly to Emperor Li Zi. Finally, she smiled faintly, her eyes that had seen through the world's glory, curving into a decisive arc. Wan'er, come here. Obediently, Shangguan Wan'er knelt before the Empress, her slender neck slightly raised, looking up at her mentor who wielded power over the nation. This is for you. I'm tired of it. Feeling the fresh red pearl handed into her hands, Shangguan Wan'er, after a moment of silence, softly said, Empress, whatever it is, Wan'er is willing to share your burdens and relieve your troubles. My dear Wan'er. Empress Wu was still smiling, relaxed and tender. She took Shangguan Wan'er's hands, letting them both hold the same weight. The red dragon pearl. Your hands are those of a poet, meant for writing and composing. They will also be the nurturing hands of a mother. But to hold the scales that weigh the talent and heroes of the world, these hands are too delicate and fine. I know my shortcomings. However, you took decades to reach this position, and I too have studied hard to be by your side. Please let me assist you, Shangguan Wan'er said, looking directly into the eyes of the regent Empress, skillfully exchanging her purity for political ambition. This exchange was cunning and ignoble. She wouldn't be surprised by the ruthless actions that would follow. But since Empress Wu Zixin had kept her by her side, involved her in state affairs and court decisions, her responsibility was the same as all other officials for the nation and for the people, for Wu Zixin's nation, for Wu Zixin's people. Alright then, use your hands to bring me Han Yuan's life. Like indulging a spoiled child, Empress Wu Zixin waved her sleeve, permitting Shangguan Wan'er's first step into the vortex of bloodshed. An hour later, 12 charges filled the edict, ranging from demotion and exile to the annihilation of a family. The delicate and soft handwriting of a woman became the silent mockery of all Empress Wu Zixin's political enemies before their disappearance. One afternoon, Li Hong came. At that time, Shangguan Wan'er was unusually free, sitting in a rocking chair in the courtyard, reading a book. The soft afternoon light made her skin look even more tender and translucent, full of youthful brightness. Having not seen each other for a long time, she warmly welcomed Li Hong. Not only personally brewing tea, but also engaging in witty conversation, a departure from her usual reticence. She wanted to know if Yi Yang was doing well. Wan'er, during your time in Minxi Palace, Yi Yang and I have been missing you terribly, Li Hong said. What, are you afraid I'll be eaten up? Not at all, Li Hong silently admitted with his lips, prompting a light laugh from Shangguan Wan'er. It seems you're doing well, that's reassuring for us. Li Hong said kindly, the Empress may be strict, but she also has her gentle moments. Her gentleness truly captivates the heart. For a son to describe his mother with such vivid words, the implication in Li Hong's words was clear. Ever since he heard that Shangguan Wan'er had been brought to Minxi Palace, his anxiety and worry were beyond description. Fortunately, the girl he admired still radiated the same pure and unripe aura, still his childhood friend. Full of bookish charm and often oblivious to worldly matters. The Empress has a great deal of personal charm, Shangguan Wan'er said, following his lead. Then she steered the conversation to the topic she cared about. Your Highness, you just mentioned Yang. How is she doing? The same as always, diligently completing her work, occasionally sorting out the mess in Zuanqing. Li Hong took a sip of tea. It's not a solution for the two sisters to stay in the imperial harem. Do you have any strategy to help them escape? Yi Yang and Zuanqing are the Emperor and Lady Zhao's only remaining flesh and blood. I heard that the Emperor's health is improving. When people are happy, they tend to be more compassionate. If we could appeal to the Emperor privately, avoiding the Empress's ears. Shangguan Wan'er paused, recalling a recent event, and suddenly felt it wasn't a good idea. Avoiding Empress Wu's ears was too difficult. Never mind. Even if they could avoid being scapegoats, they have nowhere to go. Yi Yang and Zuanqing are over 30. Perhaps we should ask for permission for them to marry. Stop joking. Shangguan Wan'er widened her eyes, momentarily forgetting whether to scold Li Hong for his foolishness or to laugh off this absurd idea. She hoped Li Hong was just making a joke to ease his worries. She didn't want to believe that the crown prince could be so insensitive and invite trouble. She was just about to speak when Li Hong suddenly jumped up from the stone chair. Terrible, terrible. I forgot to pay respects to the Empress first. Your Highness, what you just said. Shangguan Wan'er also hurriedly stood up, anxiously following him to the door. Wan'er, let's talk next time. You know how the Empress is. I must take my leave now. But Your Highness, Crown Prince. For the first time in her life, Shangguan Wan'er stood there, staring blankly in the direction where his figure disappeared. She had spoken foolishly. Now, all she could do was pray that Li Hong wouldn't do something foolish as well.